Welcome to Red Horror Tale. My name is Oxley. A calling card, placed deliberately at a dead man's feet. September 1922. A field in Franklin Township, New Jersey. Two people, shot dead, laid side by side, as if someone wanted them to be found exactly like that. He was a reverend. She sang in his church choir, and between them, someone had scattered the torn pieces of their love letters. The scene was staged. That much seemed clear. But by whom? No one has ever been able to say. The investigation collapsed almost immediately. Sightseers trampled the field. Souvenirs were taken, and a jurisdictional dispute between counties let precious hours slip away. 4 years later, in 1926, a trial, one of the most sensational America had ever seen. And then, everyone walked free. More than a century has passed. The case is still open. The killer, or killers, were never found. Welcome, whoever you are. I'm glad you're here, because this is a case that still demands an answer. We're going to lay every clue on the board together, and by the end, you can weigh the evidence and decide for yourself what really happened in that field. Chapter 1. Laid out like a display. September 16th, 1922. Two people were found lying side by side in a field in Franklin Township, Somerset County, New Jersey. They were Reverend Edward Wheeler Hall, an Episcopal priest, and Eleanor Mills, a singer in his church choir. Both had been shot with a .32 caliber pistol. They had been killed 2 days before, on the 14th of September. Between the bodies, torn love letters scattered across the ground, and at the priest's feet, his own calling card, placed there with what looked like deliberate care. Nothing about this looked like panic. It looked arranged. Consider what you're seeing. A killer who stayed at the scene long enough to scatter letters, place a card, compose a picture. What does that tell us about who this person was and what they wanted us to think? The staging was either a message or a misdirection. And after more than a century, we still cannot say which. Let's open the board. The location: Franklin Township, Somerset County, New Jersey. And Reverend Edward Wheeler Hall, the victim. Affair. Chapter 2. The Reverend and the Singer. New Brunswick, New Jersey, September 1922. Reverend Edward Wheeler Hall was born in 1881, a man of standing, of ceremony, of quiet authority. He led his congregation with the kind of confidence that fills a room without raising a voice. Eleanor Mills was born in 1888, a singer in that very same choir. She was known by those who heard her as a voice that carried. The two were having an affair. That much was established. By some accounts, the secret had grown harder to keep. Who knew and how much was never fully established. On the 14th of September, 1922, both were killed. Their bodies were found 2 days later, on the 16th. Scattered around them were love letters, torn apart, yet still devastatingly intimate. Here is what I want you to sit with. Those letters were private, deeply so. So who, besides the two of them, even knew they existed? On the board so far, Reverend Edward Wheeler Hall, the victim. Affair. Now we pin up Eleanor Mills, the victim. Affair. Chapter 3. The Obvious Suspect. There is always an obvious suspect. Frances Hall was the Reverend's widow, and she knew about the affair. She had motive, the kind that needs no explanation. Her family had means and influence and reach. For many people, in September 1922, the answer seemed self-evident. But here's where the story shifts, and shifts hard. Before any proper investigation could begin, the crime scene was gone. A dispute over jurisdiction, which county was responsible, let the field sit open for days. Sightseers came. Some even took souvenirs from the ground. Whatever the field once held, it was lost. Think about what that means for Francis Hall, or for anyone. Without the scene, no one could ever be placed there. The most obvious suspect was, and is, unproven. The case was broken before it ever truly started. So who, then, staged what was left behind? On the board so far, Eleanor Mills, the victim, affair. Now we pin up Francis Hall, the acquitted suspect, widow. Chapter 4. A field turned to chaos. The bodies were found on the 16th of September, 1922, and almost immediately, the case began to fall apart. The field sat near the boundary between two counties, Somerset County and Middlesex County. Each believed the other was responsible. While officials argued, nobody guarded the scene. Word spread, and the public came. Hundreds, then reportedly thousands, walked right through the evidence. Some accounts say visitors carried off souvenirs, objects from the scene itself. A folded newspaper from those days captures the scale of it. By the time investigators took proper control, the ground had been destroyed. Here is where I want you to sit with me for a moment. Was this chaos simply the disorder of the time? Or did someone understand that a ruined scene is the same as no scene at all? Add it to the board, because whoever staged this scene may have been counting on exactly this. On the board so far, Francis Hall, the acquitted suspect, widow. Now we pin up 14 September 1922, Hall and Mills shot dead. Chapter 5. What the letters knew. The letters were there when the bodies were found, torn, deliberately it seemed, into many pieces. They were love letters, private correspondence between Edward Hall and Eleanor Mills. Someone had read them, someone had torn them, and someone had carried those pieces into that field and left them between the bodies. It was never established who had access to those letters before the night of September 14th, 1922. No one ever answered for their scattering. Think about that for a moment. Those letters were not scattered in panic. They were arranged, placed with purpose. What do you make of that? Knowing who might have wanted the world to see those letters, and why. If the killer arranged those letters deliberately, what were they trying to say? And to whom? On the board so far, 14 September 1922, Hall and Mills shot dead. Now we pin up 16 September 1922, bodies discovered in field. Chapter 6. 4 years of silence. September 1922. 2 people were dead. And then, almost nothing happened. The investigation stalled almost from the first hour. Somerset County and Middlesex County argued over who held jurisdiction, while the evidence slipped away. Sightseers had already trampled the field. Souvenirs had been taken. The scene was gone. Newspapers across the country refused to let the story go quiet. They called it a scandal. They called it an outrage. They demanded answers no one could give, but no charges came. Not in 1922. Not in 1923. Not in 1924. 4 years. 4 years of silence from the authorities. Francis Hall, the Reverend's widow, lived quietly through all of it. Then, in 1926, 4 years after the bodies were found, she and her brothers were formally charged. Think about that gap for a moment. What do you make of it? 4 years of nothing, and then, suddenly, A trial. What changed? Something shifted. Something, or someone, broke the silence. And what that was is the question that changes everything. On the board so far, 16 September 1922. Bodies discovered in field. Now we pin up 1926. Francis Hall and brothers tried. Chapter 7. The trial that proved nothing. By 1926, 4 years had passed, and the dead still had no justice. Francis Hall and her brothers were finally brought to trial. The trial drew reporters from across the country. A carnival where a double murder should have been. It was already being called a media circus, and that spectacle had a cost. The evidence was never enough. The torn love letters, who scattered them, was never established. The calling card found at the Reverend's feet, who placed it, remains unknown. Think about what it would take to stage a scene like that. Then ask yourself who benefits most from the message it sends. On December 3rd, 1926, the jury returned its verdict. Not guilty on all counts for all defendants. Not innocent, just unproven. The board has an acquittal on it now. But the question that haunts this case has never changed. Who staged that field, and why? On the board so far, 1926. Francis Hall and brothers tried. Now we pin up 3 December 1926. All defendants acquitted. Chapter 8. The staging was the message. Everything at that field had been arranged. The bodies were not thrown down in panic. They were laid side by side with deliberate care. A calling card had been placed at the Reverend's feet. Torn love letters were scattered between them. This was not the aftermath of rage. Rage leaves chaos. This left a composition. Someone wanted this scene to be found and read. Think about what that requires, and sit with it for a moment. The knowledge, the nerve, the composure in that field, in the dark. Who staged this? And what were they communicating? No one has ever been able to say. What kind of person plans a scene like this? And what statement were they making? On the board so far, 3 December 1926. All defendants acquitted. Now we pin up a key clue. Torn up love letters. Chapter 9. Every theory, every flaw. 100 years of theories, and not one has held. The first theory was jealousy. Raw, domestic, volcanic. A spouse wronged, some argued, could not stand the humiliation any longer. But jealousy alone cannot explain the staging, the letters, the calling card, the careful arrangement. A second theory, silencing. Someone needed those love letters buried forever. Yet the letters weren't buried. They were left out in the open, displayed. A third theory pointed to organized action. More than one person, a coordinated plan. Think about that for a moment. What do you make of a scene this deliberate, this composed? Personal vengeance was proposed, too. A grievance older than the affair itself. No motive was ever proven. Not one. The trial came and went, and the verdict answered nothing about the truth. After a century, every theory is on the board, and the top line is still blank. On the board so far, a key clue. Torn up love letters. Now we pin up a key clue. .32 caliber pistol, unfound. Chapter 10. The board is yours now. This is where we stand. 2 people, a priest and a choir singer, shot dead in a New Jersey field, September 1922. Their bodies laid out side by side, not hidden, but displayed. Torn love letters scattered between them. A calling card placed deliberately at his feet. The scene was staged, but by whom? And to say what was never established. Sightseers trampled the field before investigators arrived. Evidence gone before it was ever gathered. 4 years passed before anyone stood trial. The acquittal came on December 3rd, 1926, and the case went cold. No killer was ever named by a court. No motive ever proven. So here is what I want you to do. Look at everything the evidence tells us. The staging, the letters, the silence, the timing. And ask yourself what picture it paints. Leave your theory in the comments. Not an accusation, but a reading of the puzzle. And if this case has gripped you, stay with us. On the board so far, a key clue. .32 caliber pistol, unfound. Now we pin up a key clue. Hall's calling card at feet.